So you're thinking about milling your own grains. That's great. I congratulate you on a healthier way to a new and better you. Now there are two different types of mills, which is the inside component, the burr part, which is the part that actually produces the flour. I have two mills here. One is the Nutrimill Classic, which is very popular, and then I have the KoMo Mio here, which is also popular. Now, back in the day when people actually had to go to a miller to mill their grains to produce the flour so they can make their breads, they used stone, okay? Now, the KoMo here has a stone burr. So what the stone burr does is that it tends to crush the grain into flour. So this mill will have more of the ability to make a finer flour or a more coarse or cracked flour. Now, the Nutrimill Classic here has a metal or steel burr that actually tends to break and shred the grain. Okay, which there's nothing wrong with either way of how the grain is cracked or ground, per se. This one just uses steel. This one uses stone. The steel will break it and shred it versus the stone will grind it. I noticed personally that the stone ground gets finer. I can get a more fine powder, more fine flour over the steel. Now, when it comes to health benefits, it's kind of close. Honestly, you can read some articles stating that there really isn't that much of a difference between the two. You know, of course, milling your own grains is healthier than store-bought anyways, but the main difference between the two when it comes to the nutrition is that the stone ground does not get warm like the metal does. I can agree to this, that the metal one is more warm, so it loses the nutrition and it loses the vital quality of the grain once it's ground versus the stone. Now, I don't firmly believe that it is crucial and that you should steer away from this. No, I don't think you're losing enough to sit there and say, oh, you get way more nutrition with the stone. I'm not saying that at all. You get more nutrition out of both. It's just that the stone gives you just a little bit more of that nutrition. You don't lose it due to the heat from the milling. Now, stone can also be finer. It can grind the flour finer, like I stated, and it also can give you a true coarse grind versus the metal you can't. These two mills, I love both of them. Nutrimill is nice because the canister here, your flour ends up in, well, I gotta go this way. It has a canister. Okay, so the flour goes in here and it stays inside the canister, which is great. It doesn't allow for really all that much flour to be on your countertops and so forth. And it does click in like that. Now, this one, your flour comes out of this spout and it goes into whatever container you're putting it in. I don't really believe that this one is going to produce a lot more of a flour on your countertops and so forth versus this one. I mean, you have to pay attention to this one because it will create like a mound here. But you're not going to end up with flour all over your kitchen or wherever you grind your grains. The motor, like I said, in the Nutrimill Classic has a steel burr. So it kind of has like it can have these teeth. I haven't opened it up. I can't necessarily say, but most of the ones that I have seen, they have teeth that come down and there's another set that goes up and it shreds it like this, okay? The stone, of course, you've got stone and it grinds without the teeth. So it actually grinds it versus shredding and breaking it like this one. Now, I can say from the Nutrimill's manual, which is over here, that the chamber and the milling chamber and the motor has a lifetime warranty on it, which is great. And all the other parts is 10 years. Now, the KoMo has a 12-year warranty, but it is actually considered a higher quality. It grinds all dry grains and beans and corns, but this will not grind popcorn. You can't grind popcorn through this. But this one it can do all of the grains, but not necessarily all the beans. And I do believe it can grind popcorn, but I don't recommend it in this. So with the KoMo, you have more that you can grind versus the Nutrimill Classic. Now, differentiate between the two is that most people say, like a Nutrimill and a Wondermill have an impact grinder versus a burr grinder, which is what the KoMo has. Both mills perform wonderfully. If you prefer to have just a canister to have everything going in there and you just open it up and pour everything out and not going directly in to your bowl or your mixture, then you're going to want to go with a Nutrimill Classic or a Wondermill. If you prefer to be able to scoop out your own amount and not have to deal with a canister, go with a mock mill or go with a KoMo, this KoMo mill. There are plenty of other mills, brands out there that you can also look into that kind of have a very wide range on cost. This Nutrimill, I want to say, was $250 when I bought it, which was a little less than a year ago. I'm sure prices have gone up due to inflation. And then this KoMo Mio was actually $299 when I bought it just last month. And I do know that the KoMos they plan on raising their prices as well. Now, when it comes to noise, the steel is going to be louder than the stone. I will say that the stone grinds a little bit slower than the steel, because when I had to put my grains through this to clean it out, because every single time you get a new mill, they recommend putting a couple cups of rice or a couple cups of your wheat berries through, and then you're not using that flour. You got to throw it out because it's cleaning everything out. The metal one may have some metal shavings in it that you may not see, but if you actually touch it, you can feel and you can tell that it doesn't feel like actual flour. It's kind of got some weird roughness to it. But once you run it through, it's good to go. That's all done. You have to do, I think, at least 2 cups. So you have to do the same thing with both. You have to let the machine clean itself out by running grains through it. Now, I do believe with the stone, I had to run a little bit more through it, is what they recommended, versus this one just needed a cup, I believe, or a cup and a half. Now, the one thing that I like about the KoMo over the Nutrimill is that down here you can see I can control the grind here. I can control it a lot easier than I can with this dial. Now, when I did my own mill, when I was using the Nutrimill for milling, all I would do was turn the feed rate up and just have it up straight up and down, and that was fine. Now, it's not plugged in, so it's not going to turn on. Neither one of these are plugged in. Now, I do think and believe the hopper, which is this top part of the mill, the hopper on the Nutrimill holds more than this one, than the KoMo one. The downfall with the Nutrimill, though, is even though it has a larger hopper, the canister is only so big. So you can fill this hopper, but the canister might get too full. Versus the KoMo, I can keep adding for it to keep milling. I just have to make sure that I shift the bowl as it's milling so that it doesn't topple over. Now, with both of these mills, you cannot use an oily grain. You cannot grind an oily grain. You cannot grind nuts and seeds and herbs and so forth through this. You will ruin your machine. You cannot do that. There are specific brands and mills where it gives you that ability. These two are not. You cannot grind, I will tell you also, you cannot grind the oily grains, the nuts and so forth with a stone grinder. You have to have a steel grinder for that. But Nutrimill, this Nutrimill, even though it is steel, I cannot grind nuts, seeds, and oily grains through it. It will ruin the mechanism. It will also void your warranty. Now, why did I personally switch to the KoMo versus the Nutrimill? KoMo controlling mechanism on the inside is just far superior versus the Nutrimill versus a Wondermill and so forth. So like I said, there's nothing wrong with a Nutrimill. It's a wonderful mill, and I wanted to expand to being able to do more of a coarse grind with the KoMo versus the Nutrimill. That's honestly why I switched, was because I wanted more of a coarse. I wanted to be able to possibly do more of a cream of wheat for cereal and so forth. And I wanted to have the more coarse texture. I tried doing coarse with the Nutrimill. I didn't quite get to the texture I wanted. I can get it with the KoMo here. Whichever way that you decide to go with going a steel mill versus a stone mill, or whatever your price point may be to be able to buy one, just getting one and starting is fabulous. It doesn't matter if it's a steel or a stone personally. I think just you being interested in bettering your health, bettering your family's health is the most important thing. Like I said before, a lot of people start with a Nutrimill or a Wondermill, and a lot of people just stick with that. There are others that decide to expand, like me, where I'm making other types of bread, I'm making tortillas and so forth, and I need a finer grind. That is why I switched. So whatever your price point is, it's great. Go for it. I recommend it. If you'd like to know why milling your own wheat is better for you and the health benefits, click this video here. If you want to learn more about milling in general or see me use my mill, click this video here.